Do any of you ever feel like there's just so much chaos and you feel like life is messy and you just don't know what you need and where you need it and where it is and how you're going to get it? All the things. The truth of the matter is, this happens to us physically and mentally, and we're going to look at some ways to help clear out the clutter and get you focused in leadership. Welcome to the Leadership Edit. All right. So as I'm shuffling my papers, it's so funny. I should just say that my producer Anya was watching me do that as I was thinking it was going to be part of the beginning, and she actually just thought I was that disorganized because I usually am. So I you know am happy to just have a few pieces of paper on my desk today. But I wanted to tell you how excited I am to spend time with you today because I think um, truthfully, when I think about, again, the leadership edit, I think about the things I see with my clients and what really bothers them and what really holds them back. And so whenever that happens, I look for patterns and then I look for research, right? So I teach at a university here in Minnesota. And so I look for like, where's the research that's been done on the brain and neuroscience and leadership and what can we use to help make our lives easier, right? Like, why not take a freeway instead of a gravel road, right? So today we're going to talk about messy leadership, right? So the idea of, um, we have so many things that are coming at us that it's easy to feel overwhelmed. And what we know from the research is that when we're overwhelmed, we just can't do those proactive things. We can't get as much accomplished. We can't be innovative. We can't solve tough problems. Overwhelming our brain, it makes it like shut down. It's like having 8,000 tabs open on your computer, right? In your Chrome browser, or whichever one you're using. All of a sudden your computer just gets really sluggish. Well, the same thing happens to us. And so today, as we're looking at what works and what doesn't work, when you think about the clutter piece, right? This is physical and mental. And so when I was thinking about what's going on for clients, it helped me to come up with the concept of the 85-15. So the 85-15 is this: 85% of your energy is what your normal is. It's what you're used to. So if you have a dog, you're used to a dog. If you walk that dog, great. If you exercise every day, great. If you don't do those things and all of a sudden you buy a dog or get a puppy, it's a lot of energy. It's not your normal, right? Or you decide to take up exercising and that's not something you've done in the past. Finding time and energy and capacity to do that takes energy, right? Same thing in the world of work. Someone switches, they reorg, or there's a change in staffing and you get someone else's work. That's extra. That's not your normal. You're used to your normal, okay? So that's your 85. The 15 is our extra, and our 15 is where we use in positive and negative ways, personally and professionally. Okay, so I'll give an example. So on the personal side, a positive use of your 15, what might be taking up a new hobby, learning a second language, learning how to speak French, let's say. Okay, that's a positive use of that 15%. A negative might be a sick family member or a death in the family where you are spending time caring for others that you know in maybe that's a negative way, obviously, right? And then professionally, a positive might be something like a promotion or building in new skills or being creative or brainstorming. Those are really positive things. So innovating, very important part personally and professionally, for you and your team in the world of work. And then the negative might be, again, a layoff or restructure that creates stress and brings new things into your workplace that you weren't experiencing. So personal and professional, positive and negative, is where that 15% gets used. So if you're humming along and you're at your 85 and things are good, and I say, hey, do you want to grow and develop and maybe go back to school, get a master's degree? You'll say, hey, you know what? If I'm at my 85, I go, yeah, I kind of would like to. I have energy for that. But if I come to you as your leader and I say, hey, we think you're high potential, would you like to go back to school? And you currently have, say, a mother who is ill and has Parkinson's or Alzheimer's and you're caring for her, you might go, you know what, that's taking up my 15% and it's in the negative format. And so I don't have energy to get that done. The positive piece is that we have a chance to look at that, to evaluate, and just be aware of, right? So usually I ask people, like, kind of like a pain scale. I might say, in the doctor's office or in the hospital, they say, what's your pain? 1 to 10, right? And if you say you're at an 8, like, that's your 8. If I say I'm at an 8, that's my 8, right? It doesn't matter what the 8 is for you versus me. They just know that an 8 is our 8. So when I think about the 85-15, it doesn't mean you have to have a specific criteria. You know it intuitively. If you feel like you're at your normal, you're 85 and you're doing good, you're great. If you feel like you are overwhelmed, and you might be over 100. You might say that 15% is not only being taken care of, but now I'm taking care of my mom, and now there's been a layoff at work, and I just got a hole in my roof. Like, you could be at 120. So you're over capacity. So if you're over capacity for a long period of time, guess what happens? Well, if we are over capacity for a long period of time and we aren't able to make our own edits, our body will make edits for us. So my clients that have been overdoing it for a long period of time, guess what? Headaches, neck aches, stomach problems, colds, illnesses, back problems, maybe not sleeping well, right? Not feeling hungry. Our bodies will say, look, if you're not going to take care of me, like, I'm going to take some action to slow things down and start editing, because if you don't feel well, you're not going to be able to do all the things, and it's trying to tell you to make some edits. So what we want to do is, first of all, be aware of our number, and then be able to evaluate what we can do with that number, right? So if we're already at capacity or over, we need to take some things off. If we're at capacity, we certainly don't want to add more things on. And if we have room, if we're at that 85, then we want to look at what are the positive things we can add in. So we're not just taking whatever comes at us, but we're being very purposeful about what we add in terms of bringing in new experiences, new skills, new things that bring us joy. Right? So the 85-15 is our litmus test, right? And that's what helps us to be able to say, what kind of clutter do we have going on, and what is our current state? When it comes to the world of work, right? I know I started off with talking about my messy desk, and what I've learned is just there are a couple of different categories we can look at that are concrete in the world of our space, but also into our mental space with work. So there's certainly the physical clutter, which are things that are in your workspace that you maybe do or do not want. I know that a lot of my clients who were in the office and then they've gone into working from home because of COVID, and then back to blending. A lot of times they've said, like, my office space doesn't feel settled. I feel chaotic. Like, I don't know which place I'm leaving things, or I feel like I'm shoving everything in a bag, and it doesn't feel clean and simple. And I feel like I'm always kind of looking for things. So if that's the case, being able to spend a little bit of time editing your desk space, your workspace, and knowing what your plan is for, like, these are my days to be virtual, these are my days in the office, and maybe you having duplicates of things so that you always have your pen if you need it, or your notebook if you need it. You always have what you have just right ready for you. So you can do some things to edit your space to be prepared. When people are saying, but I don't know what that is, that feels like a lot to think about. One of the things we know works really great for the brain is thinking of what we do want. Okay, so we know that the brain is really powerful, and if we tell it what not to focus on, it will focus on that. Even if we don't want it to, right? So we'll test it right now. I'm saying to yourself, don't think about an elephant. Okay, don't think about an elephant. Do not think about an elephant. Please do not think about an elephant. So what are you thinking about right now? I guess is an elephant, right? The brain is so powerful that even we say don't do that, it will do it. So if we don't give it a clear path of what we do want, it will take whatever path it has, right? So even when we say, like, I don't want a messy desk, if it doesn't know what a clean desk looks like, it will just keep the desk how it is. So what we know works for the brain is to be able to visualize or manifest, depending on what you want to call it, what that future state looks like. So I'm just going to ask us all, as one of a little mini edits right now, to just close your eyes or think about your best desk or workspace. It doesn't even have to be a physical desk. It could be maybe during COVID you had a table by a window and there was sunshine coming in and you loved that. Great. There was less on your table. It was light. There was just 3 things, maybe just a computer. What did your space look like? What does your space look like? If you've had a great one, if you want a great one, what would the ideal spot look like? And that picture of your new beginning is what helps you to build that space and to know what stays and what goes, right? So certainly having that clear physical space is important. The next space is the mental clutter, right? So physical space, physical clutter, mental clutter. So the mental clutter, again, is like multiple podcasts, but just the tip of the iceberg is giving us a chance to think about how much we have going on, right? So in the last podcast, we talked about tic-tac-toe and all the to-do lists and how we are not getting them accomplished. And if we don't get them accomplished, at the end of the day, we worry about what we didn't get done, right? So when we're in meetings and there's notes coming on our phone and texts and Teams and all kinds of Zoom meetings, it's really easy to feel like there are a lot of things that we get started but don't finish, right? So meetings where you go to the meetings and then there's to-do items and you leave that meeting, and before you even get to even write that down, you're going into another meeting where you didn't get to address that item or think about the item or when you're going to do that item. And so all of that actually adds up in our brain space and takes up capacity. It doesn't help us. It actually hurts us and makes us feel more like cloudy or cluttered. And so our brain doesn't like that. And what it does is, again, kind of back to the tabs, it slows down and it makes decision making harder, right? So how many of you ever noticed that if you're in like the meeting marathon, that by the end of the day, that 2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock meeting, you're like, I got nothing. Like I cannot make a decision. I can't think of a solution. I don't want to be here. I can't even think about progress. You're not crazy. That happens to almost everyone. And so there are some things we can do. There are definitely some things we can do, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But certainly one of which is making space. It's making space to get those items captured. It's making space to have downtime for our brain. And it's definitely giving us a chance to be productive on things that are important. Okay. The third thing is the calendar meeting clutter, right? So all the things that are filling our calendars, people who just pop something on, and they, are they concerned that you have too many meetings on your calendar? No. And this is where I often call people, I always ask people like, what kind of meeting method, management method do you have? And they're like, what do you mean meeting management method? It's easy for me to say. and they say, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, well, do you use the cowboy method? And they're like, what's the cowboy method? I'm like, it's the, yeah, here we go. 8 o'clock in the morning, I'm going to go from meeting to meeting and meeting and meeting. I don't have time to prep. I don't have time to think about what's going to be covered. There's no clear agenda. I don't know what's being asked of me. I'm going to show up and try to keep my head down and get through that one and get to the next one, right? And if any of you have been in that place, you know that that is also really exhausting, because then by the time 5 o'clock comes, you barely remember what's been covered, you haven't gotten anything accomplished, and now you're going to try to maybe go be with your family or make dinner or haven't, maybe for a bit try to go work out or do something fun for yourself. You can see where this 85-15 is coming into play, right? If that's your day, there's probably not a 15 wiggle room left for you to feel energized and ready to go do something positive for yourself. So we've got to do the edit. We've got to stop the insanity. We've got to say, this isn't working. I'm never going to feel like I'm winning, and I deserve to win, because you bring great things to the table, right? So what are we going to do? What's the edit, right? Let's get to it. If we think about what we want in our future state, we can certainly think about what we're willing to tolerate, right? That's in the negative sense. But here again, we did some visualization with the desk. I often have my clients do a visualization of what a day looks like, an ideal day. How do you start your day? Are you quiet in the morning? Are you at home? Are you being peaceful? Do you get right into stuff? Do you plan? Do you plan the night before? Like, where do you get your space of getting ready and excited for your perfect day, right? And there has to be that little moment of you being able to say like, how am I going to have a great day today? And then making a plan for that. And everyone has their own time they do it, so that's not the issue. Some people do it first thing in the morning. Some people do it right before they leave for the day. Some people do it before bed. All those things are great and they all work, but doing it does make a difference. So having a plan of how your day is going to go well, very important. The next thing is to be able to manage your energy around it. And so what we want to do is be able to edit some specific things to manage our energy and create more of that 15, right? So if someone gives us more things, one of the best things we can do is take some of the things off, maybe that are lower level, so we can make space. And here are a couple really easy, quick things to do, okay? So number one is the clear your desk at the end of the day 5-minute edit. Okay, you set a timer, or my favorite is you play 2 songs. You pick music you like that makes you feel good, whatever that music is, 2 songs. And for 2 songs, you clear your desk up and you get it ready for the next day. And that means if it's making some notes of actions you have to do, that's fine, whatever it is. It doesn't mean it has to be your strategic planning time, but it's your 5-minute edit. And 2 songs are about 5 minutes. So do that, right? So end of the day, start fresh. The second one is the audit of your calendar. And this one I'm a big fan of. I do this a lot with my CEOs, my executive team, and it certainly works with managers. But the higher up people are, the more I tell them it's important they do this and that they reinforce it with other people on their team that they can also do it. And this is, again, this isn't necessarily rocket science, but it's a concrete task you can do. And one of my favorites is the halvesies method, okay? So, and have you ever heard of halvesies, going halvesies, splitting like a dinner with someone, like, or splitting a meal or splitting a cost with something, like, hey, let's go halvesies. I call it meeting halvesies. And what meeting halvesies is just how it sounds. You go into a meeting and you say to the people in the meeting, none of us really truly want to spend an hour on this topic, most likely. And odds are that we could be much more efficient and effective. So what if we go halvesies and we say, let's try to get everything we need to get done for this content, for this meeting in 30 minutes. And then everyone else gets that 30 minutes free. Okay, so if people do it, you kind of all in, you like put your hands in, say, hey, who wants to do it? Let's do it. 30 minutes, you get the work done, and you have 30 minutes to do the work, to execute items, to restore, relax, go to your office, whatever that might be. And I've yet to see anyone say no to this. I will say this, it doesn't always work great the first time. I think we're so used to being like, hey, every meeting is a half hour or an hour or in 30-minute increments that we think we have to fill the meeting to the hour block, but that's actually not really true. We can have 15-minute meetings, we can have 20-minute meetings, but even if we have an hour meeting and we say, let's cut it in half, the first time you might not do great. You might need a little more than 30 minutes, or you might not get to everything. But there's the innovation opportunity, right? Because then you say, gosh, why didn't we get it all done? What could we do next week to help us get it done in 30 minutes, right? So maybe it's better notes. Maybe it's better to-do items, usually a better agenda, more clear roles and responsibilities of who's going to do what during the next 30-minute meeting. All of those things are innovative and help you to have a better meeting and also still be more efficient. And I've done this with several of my clients, and after they do it once or twice, then they want to start doing it everywhere. And if you think about it, if you have 40 hours in your work week, which is probably low for many of you, if you have even 30 minutes worth of meetings and you cut it into 15, now, right? Now you're looking at, much more time in your calendar to actually get the work done so that you're not doing it in the evenings, you're not doing it at 10 o'clock, you're not doing it on the weekends, but you're actually getting the work done while work needs to be done. Okay. So we've talked about a lot of micro edits so far. We've talked about the clear your desk at the end of the day where you're listening to 2 songs and you just get ready for the next day. We've talked about the auditing your calendar and doing the halvesies edit. This next concept is really about the impact edit, right? So this is about having a set amount of time, and I recommend taking, we'll start with baby steps, but I recommend to my clients, my executive clients, that they have 2 hours a day, every day, that are their impact edit hours, okay? And I'll explain what that looks like. So what I first want to do is ask us all to think for a moment about when we tend to feel the most energy, all right? So think to yourself about, do you get a burst of energy in the morning? Do you get it midday? Do you get it after lunch? Do you get like a 3 o'clock burst? Do you get 5 o'clock? Some people get it late at night. But we all tend to have that burst of energy where we're like, man, I just feel like jazz. I can get a lot accomplished. So that hour is kind of like a BOGO, like buy one, get one. Like whatever you're doing, you feel like you can just get through it faster. And we all have that natural energy, all of us. So paying attention to it is the first step. If you don't know intuitively what it is, usually when I ask audiences at a conference, people know intuitively. If you don't know, that's okay. Then you just keep track for a week and just see where you tend to feel the energy. But once you know, the rule is you take those hours, and if you're going to start small, pick 1 hour a week and put on your calendar, and that's your impact hour, right? That's your impact edit, where you are only working on key things, which I'll talk about in a moment. Ideally, those hours get blocked out every day for the whole week, right? So 5 hours a week at minimum that you're not taking meetings. During this time, you're protecting your time. It's just for impactful items. And that's when we're answering the 3 questions that we talked about at the last one. So for those of you who aren't familiar from the last podcast, There are three questions we're always asking ourselves as leaders. We're asking ourselves, what's the most important thing I can do? What's the most impactful thing I can do? And what can be done by only me, right? So as you're noticing those things, what I often tell people is to keep a list in some way. You can use apps, tools, the note pods. You can certainly, whatever method works for you, a notebook will also work. But I always tell people those items that are the most important, impactful items that can be done by only you, those are the items that are part of the impact edit. So what I tell my executive clients is any item that comes up for you, you put it into your meeting agenda on your calendar for those hours that are blocked for you. So when you get into your time, you open up your calendar and there's a list of things that you've already said in advance are important items for you. And then you just pick any of the items in there. So it doesn't matter which ones. Wherever your energy is, you pick one of those because any of those are going to move the organization forward. And so it could be something like instead of maybe it's putting a new process in place. It's going to save, instead of saving one person time, you're going to save 20 people 20 minutes a day by putting a new process in place that's simplifying a 7-step process into a 3-step process, right? There are all kinds of things that we have or innovative, creative type of work that we need to do, kind of that part of that 15%, right? The 85-15, where we're really using that extra energy in a positive way during our impact edit is when we can best use that time. Okay, so I encourage you to find some impact hours on your calendar to do your impact edit based on your energy, block them and protect them, right? They are not negotiable. And what I usually tell people to do is be really mindful about what you're working on. So if someone says to you, hey, Kelly, can you come to this meeting? You can say, you know what, actually I can. I just can't come during that hour because I'm working on XYZ. I'm working on a strategic plan or I'm working on something that is going to benefit all of you. So you could say, I can do before or after, I just can't do that hour. And to continue to protect that. And people say, gosh, 5 hours a week, that's insane. But then I think, okay. So the higher up you get in an organization, in theory, the more they pay you, right? And you work, in theory, 40 hours a week, minimum, right? So we're saying we want to take 5 of those 40 hours, conservatively, to do the strategic, important, and impactful things that really benefit you and the company. My argument would be that 5 really isn't enough. But that's okay. Remember, we're starting small. We're doing the leadership edit. We're starting small, little steps to big impact, clearing out the clutter, making sure we're doing the things that matter. All right, so here you have several tools, several edits that you can make that are concrete. You get to choose. You get to choose which ones are going to work for you, which ones you want to try. Try all of them. And let us know how it's going to work, right? Let us know how it works for you, and we'll keep working on the edit, right? Because clutter isn't just a mess. It's a thief of your leadership. And when you make space, when you clear space, you make room for strategy, for your presence, and for progress, right? And what we want to know is that at the end of the day, we are making a difference and that the time we spend doing the work we do is worthwhile. Have a great week. Less clutter, more leadership. See you next week on the Leadership Edit.